Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight for our legislative session kickoff. This webinar is part of our Citizen Activist series, a series that we hope will give participants the grounding they need to take action on issues they are passionate about. We're very excited to have you with us tonight. My name is Aileen Berquist. I'm the Community Engagement Manager and Lobbyist for the ACLU of Kansas. I have with me Jesse Kielman, our amazing Communications Manager, and Meg Sparrow, our fantastic legislative intern. So a couple of housekeeping tips before we get started. We are going to save the Q&A until the end of tonight's session, but we would really love to hear from you. If you have a question during the presentation, just reach out to Meg in the chat and we will address your questions in the order they are shared. It's just hard to focus when the question box is popping up. So thank you for your patience with that. Second, we are recording this webinar. So if you have to step out, like I said, we will be sending around the recording. All right, Jesse, let's get us started. All right, I already kicked us off with some introductions, but I would love to know in the chat, who are you, where are you located, and what brought you here tonight? Not just I saw an email you sent, but what are you interested in? What are you excited about for this legislative session? So go ahead and share in the chat. We want to hear from you. Got a quiet group. Nope. All right, we're not into the public sharing right now. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Anne-Marie. I appreciate it. Awesome. Cool. Someone's here to get ideas about career advice. Right, get involved in the community. Awesome, thank you so much for sharing. So tonight is going to be sort of what I like to call quick and dirty citizen activist or citizen lobbyist training. We're going to give some basic overviews about the Kansas legislature. We're going to talk a little bit about our priorities as an organization, if you want to keep them in touch with what we're working on, and then talk a little bit about ways that you can engage, as well as some tips for engaging with elected officials. I know it can be overwhelming sometimes to take that step and reach out to your legislator, but we really want to help you along so that you can have those conversations about things that you're passionate about. Jesse, next slide. So to kick us off, one of the things that I like to remind folks is that we have a part-time legislature. So that means that vast majority of our folks in the Capitol have full-time jobs outside of their work representing their district. So their work continues throughout the year, but the heaviest time is when the legislature is in session from early January until the veto session finishes up in late spring. So right now is the busy season. It's crunch time. People are trying to fit as much as they can into the legislative calendar. Another thing I like to flag for folks is that our legislators don't necessarily have access to full-time staff in every single office that do research or subject matter experts. In Congress, even the smallest House district office has multiple staff. Some of them specialized enough to take meetings on behalf of the member. When I was working in DC, I mostly met with legislative staff rather than members, but here you have much more opportunity to actually build a relationship with your local representative. So, oh, no, keep on that last one, thank you. So if you want to know how to build that relationship with your legislator, there are a few obvious places that you can start. The Kansas Legislature website, obviously, great place to get information. You can find the deadlines for the session. So when is the last time that a bill can be introduced? When is the last time it can move out of committee? When are they going to stop talking about new bills altogether and just start moving things forward? You can also, if you have a bill that you know you're interested in, monitor that bill's progress. It's really easy to go on the Kansas Legislature website, type in a bill number, and then see where it is and what it's up to. Is it getting a hearing? Is it going to be heard on the House floor? You can also keep an eye on committee hearings. So if you want the opportunity to present testimony, check out the committees, click on that committee link, and you can see kind of a week by week the opportunities you have to speak. And you can also obviously read up on your legislators and sign up for emails. This is something that not a lot of people know. If you are interested specifically in one committee, say you are a teacher and you want to know what's going on with education, you can sign up for emails from the education committee, and then you'll get updates when they're going to talk about bills, when there are going to be hearings. This is all information that is available to you. Go ahead, Jesse. When it comes to keeping track, though, of everything that is happening, because it is a lot. It is only the second week, and a lot of us are still trying to get our bearings in the building, trying to figure out where to sit, where everyone is, and there's already a lot of stuff moving through. So because everything is moving so fast, it can seem overwhelming to follow what is going on, but there are resources available to help you with that. So many of you know about Loud Light and what they're doing in our state. For those of you who don't, they are a youth-focused civic engagement organization. During legislative session, they provide weekly recaps of what is going on in the legislature, and these are in video form. So if you are sick and tired of reading emails all day, every day, like a lot of us do, you can watch a quick video that'll summarize for you what is going on. They put a lot of work into them. One of those things I wish I had thought about, but they do an amazing job and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So definitely check out Loud Light's legislative recaps. The other thing, those committee lists, like I said, if you want to know what's going on a week-by-week basis, make sure that you are signed up for those committee lists. So committees have set times throughout the week that they meet. So it could be 9 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But that really fluctuates week by week. So that's the standing committee time, but they may not actually meet at that time every single day, every single week. So these committee lists are really important to know what's going on. And when we get into the Q&A, I am happy to walk you all through the website. I just didn't want to make anyone dizzy while we're doing this. I've gotten some feedback in the past that can be not ideal. Another thing that I want to make sure everyone knows about, it is COVID. People are worried about getting sick, about transmitting back to their families. Maybe you have a health condition. You can watch so much of what is happening in the Capitol online. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to leave your couch. You don't have to take off your sweatpants. So if you want to see what's happening on the floor or in that education committee hearing, check out KS Legislature on YouTube. It'll let you know what are the upcoming live streams, and you'll be able to see what has been archived. So if for some reason, maybe you have a full-time job like the vast majority of us do, and you can't take time off during the workday, well, you know, get yourself that cup of tea or that cup of coffee after hours, and you can catch up on what you missed. And then, of course, the plug for the ACLU Kansas volunteer emails and social media. So throughout the session, we're going to be keeping track of what's going on, and we're going to be sending out opportunities for folks to learn what's happening and get engaged if they are so inclined. So I want to take a moment to point out this House committee agenda. This was sent out last week by the wonderful committee assistant, Kathy Rakestraw, for the House Judiciary Committee. Now, granted, this looks like nothing is going on because nothing really was going on at that point. We were just getting introduced to the committee members, talking about rules in some of those committees, and then the chair requested bill introductions. But throughout the session, this is going to get a lot more interesting. You'll have your bill numbers. You'll have lists of experts who the committee wants to hear from. So that is what that will look like when it shows up in your inbox. Here is another really great tool. This is for me because I live in Lawrence, Kansas. But if you want to know who your legislator is, go to this website, type in your address, and you will be able to find who is representing you at the Capitol. Easy peasy. And that is their contact information right there. So if there's something that you are interested in talking with them about, here you go. All you have to do is send them an email. Next. All right. Now, getting into our legislative priorities. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, as you can see, a lot of these are pretty vague. On the proactive front, though, I am really excited that we are working with a coalition across the state and with some national partners to try to get a bill introduced called the Debt-Free Justice for Youth Act. There are numerous fines and fees that are assessed on juveniles and young people when they have any interaction with law enforcement. And those fines and fees can be devastating financially. If you think about it, you are imposing costs onto children, people who have no ability to pay, or on young people who are going to be set back going into their lives. So there's been a movement across the country, not just for juvenile fines and fees, but for adult fines and fees as well, to reassess how we do fines and fees, if at all. So this is a very important issue, and we are very excited to be talking to some folks in the legislature about hopefully getting it introduced this session. If you want more information about that, I can send out some links in the follow-up email, kind of explainers. We've got a website, and hopefully we'll have more information to share with you soon. I know a lot of you have heard that there are all sorts of potential bills being introduced, but these are all potentials. We don't know what these bills might look like. We don't know what sort of work we will need to do on them. For example, redistricting. If you've been following what's been happening with redistricting, there have been a lot of questions. We wanted to know, what do the maps look like? How are they going to distribute all of the changes that have happened that were represented in the census? Well, today we got our first look at the maps. So we need to review those and figure out what our next course of action is. But these are our main focuses. These are the things that we're really keeping a close eye on. Of course, voter rights, huge for the ACLU. There have been a lot of questions about CRT and potential banning of books. But again, this is all speculative. We don't know until we actually see bills that are introduced. And I do want to flag that this doesn't mean these are the only issues that we're following or providing support on. For example, there was recently a bill introduced about seriously restricting the use of shackles or restraints on youth in courtroom settings and just in general. So some of our partners worked on that legislation, and you'll see we've posted about it on social media, and we'll likely provide testimony. Hey, Jesse, I'm hearing some sound in the background. Could you make sure everyone is muted? Not sure where that's coming from. Sorry, folks. Another piece of legislation we hope will get a hearing this session, a medical marijuana bill. So last week that bill was on the committee schedule, then it was lifted and placed into another committee, and we don't really know the status of that. So all of that is to say, there is so much happening in the legislature every day, and the ACLU is keeping an eye on as much of it as we can. So keep an eye out for those action alerts, for things that come out on social media, and hopefully you will get a chance to jump in. Jesse? All right, now my favorite part, ways that you can engage. There are lots of ways, in short. And I know that not everyone is comfortable, just even outside the pandemic, setting up a meeting with a legislator and going up to the Capitol building and having an in-person meeting. That can seem like a big lift. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But that is not your only avenue for engaging civically in what's happening in the legislature. You can send an email or a postcard. Our community engagement associate, who has recently moved on to another fantastic position, used to call them love letters to legislators. You don't have to reach out to your legislator just when they're doing something you don't like. If they vote for something or introduce something that you feel strongly about, let them know. Hey, this bill is fantastic. I'm really passionate about this. Thank you for representing our district and for introducing this. If you're not comfortable meeting in the Capitol, you can meet via Zoom. So in a previous life, I organized a lot of Hill Days. So I worked with stakeholders to set up meetings with their members of Congress and have conversations. But then the pandemic hit and we were scrambling to figure out what to do, like everyone was. So we did it all by Zoom. And you know what? We had a lot more participation via Zoom. I think having this barrier, not having to go into the building and figure everything out and be in a brand new location, it can be intimidating. So don't forget that you can have these conversations virtually. You don't have to actually go to the Capitol if you want to have a conversation with the people representing you. Share on social media. So Jesse maybe can speak to this a little bit when we get to the Q&A if anyone has questions, but say a bill is introduced and we are really excited about it and we want to let you all know. We may put together a social media post and send it out to this group of people or our volunteer list and say, hey, here's the social media graphic. Can you post this to let 10 people in your network know that this is happening? So that's a really easy way to get people engaged. Use a social media graphic that we send out and tag 10 friends. Another great way to get engaged, write letters to the editor. This is a really great way to keep your pulse on what is happening in communities. Letters to the editor are great. You can attend those committee meetings like I talked about, or provide testimony at those committee meetings. Next. So a couple things to remember when you reach out to your legislator. Do your research. I know this seems really simple, but some people get caught up in the details of what they're about to do and don't necessarily put in the groundwork beforehand. So who is your legislator? What do they care about? Know your district. Know what the issues are there. Plan your talking points in advance, and we'll go a little bit into some easy ways to organize your thoughts for any meetings or testimony or even letters to the editor, but planning things out in advance takes a lot of the stress out, even if you just give yourself some short notes. Practice. When I go into particularly difficult meetings or when I'm helping someone who's going into a particularly difficult meeting, maybe it's just a topic I'm not particularly confident in, or maybe it's just something that I'm really excited about, I always practice in advance. No shame in it. It makes you feel a lot more prepared. And then follow up. I think I've sent at least 3 thank you notes today to people who I spoke to when I was in Topeka. People are so busy, and their time is valuable, as is yours. And letting people know that you appreciate that they took the time out of their day to listen to you and to have a conversation is really important. Next slide. So when you are preparing for these meetings, or when you are thinking about, this is an issue that I'm passionate about, I want to write a letter to the editor, or this is the testimony that I want to provide, I find this to be really helpful. Or as I made the joke to Jesse and Meg earlier, this is very handy. And they groaned, and I know it's awful, but it's a good way to remember this. You do not have to write like a lawyer to provide testimony. You do not need to use, SAT words. You can be very straightforward and just organize your thoughts in a manner similar to this, and it's very helpful. So, introduction. Who are you? Where do you live? If this is someone, if you're writing a letter to your particular legislator, let them know that you're a constituent. I'm writing you to talk about X. I am incredibly passionate about X. This is important to me because personal stories are very important. And it's important to our state or our district because of this reason. And I'm asking you to, whatever your ask is, I'm asking you to vote in favor of this, or bring this bill up in committee, or whatever the ask is. This may seem elementary, but starting out with this structure is incredibly helpful. I've seen it work for a lot of people, especially when you find out on a Friday night that there is a hearing on Monday, and you really, really want to talk about this issue, but you don't necessarily have all of the time that you would like to craft an incredible piece of testimony. So, very helpful. Next. All right, so this one's kind of gross, and I am sorry, but going back to messaging and preparing yourself to talk about issues that you're passionate about. Be specific. And that's not just be specific about what the issue is, but be specific about what that person can do. What are you asking them to do? For example, our group would like you to co-sponsor this bill, or we would like to hear more about your vote on this issue. Personal messages that are based on compelling stories have more impact. So, as we talked about before, think about why this matters to you, as well as to specific people you may have served. Say, again, the educator example. How would this impact your students? How would this impact their parents, other teachers, the community? This can really help you focus in. Informative. So in addition to that personal story, you want to have some valuable information to back it up if possible. If you have data, that's great. And then trustworthy. You want to make sure that you're using reliable sources, and that if you say you're going to follow up on something, be sure you follow up. Next slide. And that is it. I promised you a short presentation. I promised you quick and dirty, but I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to hear questions from folks in the audience. So if my wonderful co-hosts could come off their back onto screen. we would love to hear from people in the community.
Would you take those questions through chat still, Eileen, or would you like to allow people to unmute themselves?
I think we have enough folks on that. Let's not do unmute.
Yeah,
just
perfect.
yet.
Sounds good.
Give people a moment to think about it. So I had someone message me and ask if there are any reproductive rights bills that we know of. I haven't heard of anything. But there are a lot of people keeping an eye on that, and I'm sure we will be able to pass along that information if that happens. All right. Will we be organizing a citizen participation day? I wish I could say yes. We are concerned about COVID. If we do a lobby day or an advocacy day, it will be focused on probably our Debt-Free Justice for Youth Act. But there are lots of different events in person and virtually that partners across the state are engaging in. So keep an eye out for that, because we have overlap on a lot of different issues. So definitely keep an eye on it. And yes, I can show the legislative website in just a moment. Someone asked me a question about the Golden Years legislation. Are you hearing anything positive about the Golden Years legislation? I am looking this up. Oh, the property tax bill. So this isn't something that has been on our radar. It's not necessarily within the ACLU jurisdiction. I wish I could tell you more about that. Can you remind me whether we will have access to your really good slides? Oh, they're really good. Thank you so much. Lots of helpful links and sites. Yes, I will be sending them out. It's a free-for-all. Take what you need. How should we change the message if we want to speak to a legislator outside of our district? Ooh, that is a really good question. That's a really good question. And I'm going to sound like someone from our legal team, but it depends. It depends on the issue. So if you have interest in that area, say you have family in that area, or you own property in that area, you work in that area, like there are a lot of different ties that you can pull into that. So I would look for some sort of tie. If you have none of those ties, then think about the other people that might be in community around this issue. So something like redistricting, for example, someone asked me about redistricting. I'll get to that in a minute. That is something that impacts all of us. It's not just that person who represents you directly. So I know a lot of folks are making their voice heard via testimony, folks reaching out in, someone jumping back in again. See, but people reaching out as volunteers for different organizations. So I would try to find some sort of hook. Because the reality is these folks are focused on representing their specific constituents. So find a way that the thing that you are interested in connects to their district, and that you can also find that way to make it relevant to them. And we are hearing directly from a member of the legislature, and I won't call you out unless you say it's okay, but it makes the most sense to talk with legislators who are from outside your district when the issue is before a committee and you don't have a legislator on the committee who represents you directly. So when you have that conversation, say, hey, I don't have someone on this committee, but I would like to talk to you about this issue. Yes, and that is Senator Francisco. Thank you so much, ma'am. Is ACLU involved in redistricting? Yes, we are. We watched both of the redistricting committee meetings today. We are taking a look at the data underlying the maps that were introduced, and we hope to, God willing, if we meet the deadline, provide testimony, but it needs to be in by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And there's a really quick turnaround time. We just now got the underlying data for those maps. So things are moving fast. And I do want to make a quick reminder. I said this a lot when I was working with folks when they were going to speak with their members of Congress. The people representing you are people. I know that may seem very simple, but I think our world and the media and a lot of things make it seem like they're very far away from us, or turn people into caricatures. But a lot of people are very willing to sit down and have a conversation with you. Waiting for a couple more questions, and then I can review the Kansas legislature website, because like I said, some people hate that. It makes them very dizzy. So I wanted to wait till the end of this presentation so no one is getting seasick. All right. Pulling that up. Can everyone see my screen? Nod your head. Okay, perfect. And you're only seeing the Kansas legislature website, correct? Okay. So here is the beautiful, bounteous website, the source of so much information. And it can be a little tricky if you have not navigated it before. And the first thing I want to flag is this right here at the top, 2021-2022 legislative sessions. If you just Google Kansas legislature or a specific bill or something, sometimes it pops up with an archived version of the site. So you may think you're looking for Senate Bill 123. I just pulled that off the top of my head, and you realize this is not the bill I was looking for. This is something that was in the Agriculture Committee, and I'm looking for something in the Education Committee. Well, start out making sure that you're in the right legislative session, because I've had many confusing moments trying to figure out what the heck I was looking at. All right, say you get an ACLU email or you read something in the news about Senate Bill 123. Again, I'm just making that up. I have no idea what that is. You can go over here to find bill and just put in 123. Look up, and here it is. Okay, well, this is a darker bill than I would have liked to use as an example, but here's the short title, and this is going to give you the information you need, the basics about what the bill is about. You can look at testimony and minutes if this is something that has already gone through committee. And you can see, if you click on this, the actual bill language. The fiscal note, not as exciting unless you're trying to make an argument that this is fiscally responsible thing to do. Down here, you can see the bill history. So you can see when it was introduced, the committee it was sent to, and then when the hearing was. So let's say this is a new bill and you want to know, pretend this hasn't had a hearing in the Senate, and you want to know what's going on in the Committee on Judiciary, because this is something you are really passionate about. You want to know when this is going to be heard, if it's going to be heard. So you can go to Committee on Judiciary, and this will tell you about the committee. You know who the chair is, and you can click this and learn more about her, the vice chair, the ranking minority member. So this would be the ranking Democrat on the committee, and then the other members of the committee as well. So say you want to get on the committee list. You want to know what's happening in committee week by week because this is the issue you're passionate about, and you want to know when the hearing is happening. Looks like Kim Sage is our committee assistant. You'll just send her an email and say, hey, could you please add me to the committee list? Simple as that. Really is. Another good way, say you are sick of getting emails. You get too many emails. You signed up for the ACLU emails. You were passionate about it at the time, but now Aileen will not stop sending you stuff about the legislative session you can't handle anymore. Go to agendas and minutes. Click on that. Pull up whatever the agenda is for the week. Weekly standing agenda, pull that up. And it'll tell you what's happening on a day-by-day basis. So this is the standing committee time, 10:30 a.m. On Tuesday, January 18th, they're going to hear a request for bills. So that's just asking, do we have any bills we want to introduce in committee? And then there's going to be hearing on HB 2075. And this is what it's about, followed by discussion and possible final action. So I'm going to get back out of here. I'm going to back out. Find your legislator, because I think I've done enough on bills. I'm going to use Senator Francisco because she has so graciously been in the room with us tonight. I want to find out what committees she's on. I want to find out what she has voted on. So I'm going to type in Francisco. And lo and behold, there she is. Wonderful. So she is District 2 Democrat. I can click here and see the map. What is District 2? This is going to change pretty quickly. We're not sure how it's going to change, but you can see what that looks like. You can look at the profile for the district. You want to know who is she representing. And it's going to tell you, okay, where is she a leader? She's the ranking member on utilities, on joint committee on state building construction, and on local government. And then she also sits on these other committees. And these are the bills that she has sponsored. And then over here, you can get a little information as well. Sorry for picking on you, Senator Francisco. All right, so those are the really basics. This next couple minutes, and I promise we're almost done looking at the website. Ooh, we got a question in the chat. I want to make sure this isn't. If I submit written testimony, who should receive the email or letter? That is perfect. And I'm going to say, go to your committee site. This time we're going to choose the Ag Committee. Go to committee documents, committee rules or conferee rules. Sometimes it's different. One or both of these will give you information about how to submit testimony for that committee. And I do want to say that while they are similar, they are not exactly the same for every single committee. So if you submitted testimony in Education Committee last year, and this time you're really passionate about something happening in agriculture, make sure you know in advance. Committees are asking for 24 hours notice for your written testimony. That may seem like it's last minute, but I promise you, they need as much time as they can get to get that up on their website so that everyone has access to it. I don't know if you've ever been to a committee hearing where you couldn't actually see the testimony. Sometimes the technology doesn't work out. It can be very frustrating. Please be kind to our committee assistants and our staff at the Capitol. They're doing a lot in a short period of time. They're good people. But along those lines as well, if you have a question, if you're like, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying about presenting testimony, just reach out to them. Again, these are human beings. They're civically minded human beings, and they want to get you the information that you need. Okay. I love these questions. This is fantastic. If you are not bored out of your minds yet, I want to take you to our calendars. I want to know what's happening everywhere in the Capitol. I'm going to click on one of these. I want to know what's happening tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? Pull up the House calendar. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm not going to bore you with this first part, so I'm going to scroll for a bit. Close your eyes again if you get seasick. A lot of bills, lots of information. House committee agenda. This is where the magic happens. This is where the fun conversations are had. This does not have to do with the floor action, so what's happening in the actual House or the actual Senate, but these are the opportunities for you as a citizen to get engaged. So say you just want to know what's happening. It's a busy day up in Topeka. This is going to tell you all about it. So you don't have to go to individual committee sites. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., these are the 3 committees on the House side that are scheduled regularly. So tomorrow in appropriations, we've got this request for bill introductions. We've got a presentation. The next day, more requests for bill introductions, pretty standard at this point because we have not reached the February window for closing that out. Financial institutions and rural development. Not necessarily the things this group is particularly excited about, but I want you to know that there are things going on outside of civil liberties that impact our daily lives. There's a lot of great work being done. So the 1:30, these are all the ones that are typically scheduled for 1:30, and on and on and on. And I guess this should have been part of the beginning of this conversation, so my apologies. You've probably heard the different names of leadership on both sides, and you may know who your legislator is, but if you ever want to know, House leadership. Here's our speaker, Speaker Pro Tem, that's his backup, Majority Leader, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you can link out to their pages to figure out who they represent directly. And then you scoot down and we've got our House Minority Leader, Tom Sawyer, Assistant Minority Leader, et cetera. All right, I'm going to stop share for now. Are there any other questions, or would you like me to take you on another ride through the legislative website? I'm happy to do it because I hate it when people assume that something is easy to navigate just because they are used to navigating it in their daily lives. One of the things that Jesse hears me say all the time is make the implicit explicit. So if you have a question, please let me know. We want to make this process as accessible as possible to folks. I'm going to give it another moment to see if there are any other questions. There do not seem to be any. So I guess this is my opportunity to wrap up. If you have a question that you did not ask here, or as soon as we get off this call, you decide, oh, I wanted to ask her about that, please reach out. Jesse, can you put my email in the chat? I'm happy to talk to you. I will say that Fridays are going to be the best day if you want to do a one-on-one conversation, because that is the slowest day in the legislature and everything is happening at once right now. So if you want to review this, if you want to share it with a friend, if you've got a cousin or nephew who you think needs to be more civically minded and you want to make it easier for them, I am sending out this recording and the slides. So you will have the information you need. Thank you, Jesse. If you have those follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. And if you want to be engaged throughout the session, let me know. Keep an eye on your email. Keep an eye on our social media. Jesse is a great source of information. And by that, I mean, don't reach out to him directly because that's not his job, but he is the one who handles our social media. And so he keeps the public updated in a very helpful way. And he also makes beautiful graphics for us. And if there are no more questions, that's it, folks. I really appreciate you being here tonight. I am obviously very passionate about this. I hope you are too. Whatever your issues are, whether it's on the ACLU platform or whether you are in a completely different area, these tools are still important. So thank you for being here tonight.